Okay, better better late than never. It's interesting. It's interesting when things come together in such a way, and they did for me today in a particular way. And then when I open this up, and it says, "What is a body?" It is interesting that I couldn't do the lesson this morning when I woke up. Not that I couldn't read it, and not that I couldn't sit there and open my mind. And allow some contact to happen. As a matter of fact, I was sitting in the yard when I this morning early when I first began to make my contact, and it's always beyond. Personally, for me, it's always experience that takes me beyond words, that both humbles me as well as introduces a magnitude of spirit and an enormity of being that goes a long way to just sort of fall into it and recognize your own oneness in it. But I was uncomfortable this morning. I couldn't, something just wasn't right. I wasn't physically 100%. I couldn't sit down and do this lesson. And then I had a bunch of errands to do, so I was on my way doing errands, and the truth of the matter is, when I think back at what occurred, is exactly what this talks about. What is the body? And then as we go along, I'll add to. The body is a fence around the sun, the Son of God imagines he built to separate parts of himself from another. It is within this fence he thinks he lives, as to die and decay. For within this fence he thinks that he is safe from love, which is the interesting thing. And the body will not stay. The body is a dream. Like other dreams, it sometimes seems the picture, but can quite suddenly revert to fear. And we all know that. You can be. And there's a reason. There's a very good reason why there's a range that runs from happy to fear, and it can happen quite suddenly. Because when you get too happy, remember, the idea into the mind of the Holy Son of God, there crept a tiny mad idea, which he remembered not to laugh. So remember, what happens is we're living back in the healing of our mind to that moment. Do you understand? So it was in the joy of the kingdom wherein which we remembered not to laugh, and this dream of separation seemed to spring from that. So as we get into conditions of joy, as suddenly we spring into a condition of joy, unless we remember and associate that joy with something eternal, with something whole and perfect, with something that's beyond space and time and can't be lost, the ego gloms onto that and immediately throws you into a condition wherein which, because of the fact that it was in a condition of total joy that you remembered not, as you approach that condition of total joy, wherein which you remembered not to laugh, you begin to go unconscious again and forget. And in the forgetting, the fear comes. And that's why it can happen so suddenly, especially if you get overwhelmed with joy and there doesn't seem to be a reason and your mind doesn't understand what's going on within that experience. The fear is going to overcome you rapidly because the ego is going to co-opt that joy to help maintain its own existence by throwing you into fear and making you question the joy and not the fear, which is an interesting thing. Only love creates in truth, and truth can never create fear. So, now this is an interesting thing because this is the body is the means by which the Son of God returns to sanity. Though it was made to fence him into hell without escape, yet has the goal of heaven in exchange for the pursuit of hell. And remember, the dream is a projection of the errant son's mind. And as the errant son heals his mind, what he projects and what he understands has the ability to see through the illusion of separation, because his mind is being healed of the thoughts that would keep him from communication that would allow him to know that he's whole and perfect. You will identify what you think will make you safe, whatever it may be. And this is now the body is whole. The Son of God extends his hand to reach his brother and to help him walk along the road with him. Now the body is holy. Now it serves to heal the mind that it was made to kill. And as I was driving today, I don't know what happened. I got out in the car. I started to feel better. Like, I was feeling better. All of a sudden, I started to think about the upcoming revival that I'm going to be going to next week in Wisconsin. And I began to think of, the guys there that my friends, the guys I know and love. And something occurred, is all I could say. And what happened is these threads of stories, or these threads of left over from experiences that I've had over the course of the years, all of a sudden came into a single focus. And I remembered something about myself that included all my brothers. And the next thing I know, I was just overwhelmed and overcome with love. And there was this healing quality, because the tears just sort of began to roll free. And it took me way back, seemingly eons, lifetimes back, to other memories that now all of a sudden, when this new understanding came about, these memories all came into a single focus, and I saw what they were all about and why I was having them, why I was being given these memories. It was an interesting experience. And what else I wanted to say when I was talking about that, I was reminding myself, so in the morning when I sat outside and the body, carried the body outside, begins to be the means by which I extend my hands to my brothers in the recognition. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be with my brothers, but it does mean that my brothers come with me in my heart and my mind, in the purity and innocence of my own recognition of myself, and the certainty that they are that along with me. And it really does. It goes from being, the body goes from being what we attempted to make it into, a figure lost in dreams with no apparent escape from the dream, to a mind utilizing the body and the dream in its entirety as a way to recognize the truth of who he is and bring the good news to all of who are given to him to share in this adventure. And so we've been turned around in that sense. So I had this experience, and one of the things that I did want to speak about is I was just reminded when I sit, and I don't know why this especially happens when I'm in nature. When I sit and I begin to just relax my mind and bring my attention within and make that click, that shift occurs within me, what seems to happen as the shift is occurring, or just prior to the shift taking hold, I have this experience of an expansion of time that goes back eons. Time gets expanded, and eons of feelings just sort of come forth into this release of my concepts. It's like all of space and time becomes participatory. I don't know how to say this. It's like I go and I can feel it. There's this expansion of time and a slowing down. And then all of a sudden, there's this recognition. And this is one of the things that happened while I was driving. There's this recognition of a connection that's always been there. And today I was driving, and that shift came upon me, and I had this experience. I was brought back to my childhood, and I remembered, all of a sudden I remembered clearly that my mind has been making this shift on its own, and it's been occurring to me, and I knew not what it was. And today, in the recognition of this going back and way back in time to when I was a child, I would have this, it warmed me from the inside to recognize the truth of the fact that that presence has always been with me. It's never been lost. And it's been with me in times when I didn't know what it was, and yet was aware of something unworldly, like a perspective or an ability to see where time stands still, and you're just simply an observer from a perspective that is so perfect and so whole that there's not even a consideration of fear or guilt in it. There's just the innocence. And I was remembering way back when I was a kid, this idea. I remember the first time I saw a construction site where they had a big dig in the city, because they have to dig deep to make these skyscrapers, and this huge hole, and it's like city blocks sometimes. And they put the fence around, and they used to put plywood up, and they put holes into the plywood so you could look in. And I remember looking in one day and realizing, wow, it's like we're just that. What we see of the world is just dependent upon the perspective that we take as we look in on it. And from that, consciousness is all perspectives in that sense. Consciousness and awareness holds all those perspectives, and in and of itself, the perspective isn't your reality. It's that which gives meaning to the perspective, that which is behind. What you're seeing when you look through is the world. Where you're seeing it from is a perspective based on the fragmentation of the minds into, in a sense, individual perspectives of the wholeness, rather than a whole perspective in each and every from point of view. Like you're just getting what you see in that. And if you moved, you would see it slightly differently. And that's the way the human being sort of is. We're all one. We share the same mind. We're just facets of that mind. And in space and time, we have a perspective based on the individual nature of our facet. In reality, the light of the totality is what shines through us as a facet. And that is how we create. We can use, this is what it's saying. So we take that which has been given us, and instead of utilizing it for the ego and the world of space and time to maintain the body, we begin to utilize it to understand who we are in reality, and then allow the body to help us continue to integrate that reality into our mind and heart as we share the message in the awakening that's taken place. You will identify what you think will make you safe, and when you begin to have experiences of wholeness and perfection that come to you from beyond space and time, and you recognize that's who you are. The leap is, well, if I am that, then there is nothing in space and time that can actually threaten my safety, and you hasten to that understanding in the midst of situations wherein which you do feel threatened. And the good news is, when you do it that way and hasten to join with in your right mind with the Holy Spirit, to where and recognize the self that is beyond anything that can be hurt, because there nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. When you enter into that perspective, and you're here, and you're utilizing that, you begin to utilize that understanding in moments, and you bring your sanity. So this is you're returning to sanity. You utilize your body to return yourself and the situation you are to sanity. Not because you know what sanity is, but because you know who you are, and you begin to utilize the power of the self of the Christ and his understanding, rather than the weak power in the need for the ego to protect through defense that which you are. So I know I'm all over the place, but I read this experience today was really a catharsis, was really a deep cleansing and coming together in me of these strands of understanding that now all of a sudden give me the recognition of how or why, in a sense, I have been doing what I'm doing and experiencing joy in the doing of it, because it is part of the plan for salvation. And there was all these major, and not major, because it's like along the way then, it's like the universe, what seems to happen after that is, I'm in a collaborative venture with the universe, and we, in a sense, become a single motion, wherein which everything fits together. You know, it's like you have your own soundtrack. The music plays to help you stay in that non-conceptual communication, wherein which harmony is the rule. And joy, not for any, but in a sense, it's an abstract joy, because it's not attached to anything, yet anything can be seen by the eyes of joy and participate in the celebration of joy that takes place in this collaborative venture that we're participating in with everything, with the universe. And today's lesson, the individual lesson, 261, God is my refuge and my security. I will identify with what I think is refuge and security. And when you have, I know we've talked about a top-down approach where people have revelatory experiences, integrate, and the motivation becomes the light that they experience, and the contact with God and the revelation that they receive becomes the motivation to purify their heart and their mind of false perception, so as to return to that state of natural communication with their creator. And the other way is from the bottom up, when finally you're sick and tired of the human experience, and you're given a method by which you can train your mind, and you begin to have momentary contacts with something which is so grand and so beyond anything in separation, that you're beginning to recognize that your security and refuge lies not within this world, but lies within the self that you are in that reality, wherein which the eternal, loving, living light of God is part and parcel to your being. I will identify what I will behold myself where I perceive my strength. And today was one of those days where it was so obvious to me, because you lose track of the body in the sense of it being, and then this is in the sense of being a vehicle of separation, a membrane of separation, and you recognize it as participatory in the entirety of your experience, in your return to sanity, in the recognition of the natural state of God being your refuge and God being your security. I live within the citadel where I am safe and cannot be attacked. Let me today seek not security and danger, nor attempt to find peace in murderous attack. I live in God, and God lives in me. In Him I find my refuge and my strength. In Him is my identity. In Him is everlasting peace, and only there will I remember who I really am, of course. Let me not seek false idols. I would come, my Father, home to you today. I choose to be as you created me and find the Son whom you created as myself. And that'll be our contact. And each and every day we can have a moment, morning and evening, of communion. And as our mind is set right, and this is what I'm trying to say to you, is the benefit and the joy of this practice. It's discipline of freedom. Because as your mind attunes and accepts this new thought system, naturally you begin to have experiences that are of your reality and not of this world, because your mind has been trained and aligned and are in attunement and atonement at one-ment with the universe. And there's these moments of particular clarity. There's moments of particularly clear communication where it's unambiguous. That's what she says. The communication is unambiguous. It's not subject to you giving it meaning. It is your meaning. Your meaning is communication. Communication, meaning, it's all the same thing. So finally I got today's lesson done, and here we are. So this 261, God is my refuge and security.